Finance is about to change forever, and 99% of investors don't even realize what's happening or how it's going to affect them. I know this because I'm in the trenches every single day. I work at Beacon. We're a billion-dollar holding company that buys niche software businesses. We bought roughly 20 companies last year, and we're hoping to close on 40 more this year. And for every one of those, we're completely transforming them with AI. So whenever something shifts in the way that a company is bought or operated, I'm one of the first to know about it. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the 5 biggest shifts that I see happening today in finance due to AI. And I'm going to use Beacon as our example here, both at the holding company level and the portfolio company level. But you can apply the principles here to any fund, any firm, or even any company. The first major shift that I'm seeing is the rise of AI native firms. And by AI native, I don't mean that they just give their team access to ChatGPT or Claude, or that they add AI features to their product. What I mean is companies that have been built from the ground up to take advantage of AI. Let me give you a concrete example of how we're doing this at Beacon. We're building this thing at Beacon called Beacon OS. And you can think of it as a system that has access to every single tool across every single department in our organization. And that's both at the holding company level, so both at the Beacon level, as well as the portfolio companies level. And all of these tools are plugged into Beacon OS. And if you're thinking about it as a single source of truth, yes, that is true. You can ask questions to the data from disparate data sources. But where it actually gets magical is not only can you ask questions from this single source of truth, but you can actually take actions. So for example, if somebody on the value creation team, basically the growth team, wants to spin up a new email campaign for a specific portfolio company, they don't actually have to speak to the portfolio company, get access to the systems or anything else. What they can do is they can just ask AI to surface all the meeting data from the Fireflies recordings to understand how the CEOs, how the people on the team talk about their customers. It can also access the database, customer support tickets, and also Instantly, which is an email outbound messaging system. And so using all of these, it can then craft the messaging, think about the different ICPs to target, and then using Instantly, it can spin up the inboxes and actually start sending those out. And the beauty of this is you might pay an agency $4,000 a month, $5,000 a month to go in and actually do this for your team. But now, because people on our team have access to all of this data, they can do this in the space of an hour. In the past, this process used to take me multiple days. I have to speak to multiple people on the team, go into the database to understand the data, understand the customer support tickets to see what messaging people were using, understand the CRM, things like that. But now all of this can be done via the Beacon interface. And so it's not the person doing the work anymore, it's just AI. This is pretty cool, but it's just the start. In this specific scenario, you take something that took 20 hours and you condense it down into 2 hours. But where this gets even more interesting is how I see this playing out over time. So I think there are going to be 3 stages to this happening. Right now, it's just stage 1 is you can ask questions and manually take actions. So there's a human in the loop that's doing all of this. The second is that once we add AI to the system and it sees the results of what we're doing and what industry best practices are, it will be proactive. So the AI, instead of waiting for a person to query it and ask it to do certain things, it will suggest certain things. So it might notice that churn has been higher than usual this month for a particular company and flag that to the individual responsible. Step number 3 is instead of just being proactive about the proposed change, it actually makes the change. And that's where it becomes autonomous. This can seem pretty scary if you've never done this before. Giving AI access to all of your data and the ability to take actions on your behalf can be scary, but I've found that over the past 3 months, I've started to trust AI more and more, especially since I've started using Claude Code. Now that it has the ability to just run as an agent in a loop and also verify its work, it's able to see where it's going wrong, understand the problems, and then fix them. And eventually, a couple of hours later, it has the full product or the issue that I wanted solved complete. So you might start off apprehensive, but I promise you that over the next 6 months, you'll start to trust AI more and more and try and get out of its way as much as possible. Okay, so what's the problem here? The problem here is that The companies that do this, what I'm talking about, like ours, are at a structural advantage. Not only can we move faster, but these advantages are multiplicative. So if you're a company that has no idea what I'm talking about, you can be left stranded because you're just working at a fraction of the potential output that your organization can do today. And so my advice here is to start small. Don't try and create this whole data architecture, this data system, because it will take you months and you don't even know what you actually need. What I would start off with is something pretty simple. Either Claude Code for your engineers or Claude Cowork for your non-technical people. And you can't just stop there. What you need to do is give it access to all of your systems via MCP or via APIs plus skills. I promise you that people initially will be reluctant, but once people on your team give Claude access to at least 3 tools that they use every single day, it will dramatically change the way that they work, and you won't be able to take Claude out of their hands. The advanced version of this is, once you've started to do this, try to get your employees or your team to codify their day-to-day knowledge into skills. Skills are basically prompts or a way to do a particular thing. And the great thing about skills is not only is it codified knowledge of your best workers, but it also gives them access to tools and APIs. So you can run a complicated process pretty autonomously. And in many cases, you can make the skill so good such that it is as good as your best employee at that particular thing. By the way, if you need help with AI implementation for your firm or for your holding company or even for your company in general, people have been asking us for some of the tools that we've built internally, and we're considering piloting them with a few funds and a few firms. If this sounds interesting to you, feel free to book a call with me in the description below. The second fundamental shift that I'm seeing is that the types of businesses worth buying or investing in is fundamentally changing. And I'm going to give you 3 examples of how this is playing out. The first are service businesses, especially service businesses as it relates to knowledge work, something that you can do behind a laptop. Historically, these types of businesses have not been the best acquisition targets because they're labor intensive and they're harder to scale. In the age of AI, this is fundamentally changing. You have 2 major forces that are helping here. One is that because of the 2 issues that I mentioned, service businesses are cheaper to buy. And also, because they're human intensive, because of AI, now you just have more room for margin expansion. Today, we don't buy any service businesses. But from what we're seeing in the market, this space has started to heat up quite a lot. The second type of business that I want to talk about are API-first businesses. I think I'm at the forefront of how we're going to interact with tools. And the way that I do my work day to day is I have Claude up, it has access to all of my tools, and the AI just does my bidding. I give it direction, I give it feedback here and there, but fundamentally AI has API access to all of my tools, and I just dictate. I don't even type anymore. I just hold down the function key and tell it what to do via voice note. I think a lot more people's work will move to this, but this only works if it has access to all of my tools via an API. So right now, whenever we think about using a new software tool or anything else like that, if it doesn't have a strong API, the likelihood that we use it internally at Beacon plummets. So if you're considering buying a company or investing in a company that isn't API first, I would think twice before investing or buying. The third type of business that I want to talk about are expensive point solutions. So one concrete example here is deal room software. Deal room software, because of the profile of the buyer, has been historically quite expensive. These people are usually priced inelastic. Traditional deal room software can cost $25,000 per deal. At least that's what we were quoted by some of these companies. Instead of paying that exorbitant amount, we decided to just build an internal tool that was custom fit for our needs. One engineer started a month ago, and in that time, he's been able to duplicate all the best features of the deal room software that's out there, plus add custom features and custom AI tooling for our specific use case. The point that I'm trying to get at here is that internal tools have become faster to build and cheaper to build because of AI. You can just make progress way faster. And so the buy versus build calculation dramatically changes. So if you're thinking about buying something that is both an expensive tool and a point solution, it doesn't give you broad coverage across a suite of products, I would think again before buying or investing. The third major shift that I'm seeing is that great AI products have tremendously fast growth. So typically when you think of value creation, when you buy a business, you underwrite the historic growth of the company. Or when you invest in a company, you underwrite the historic growth of the company. And some companies grow steadily, maybe 10%, 20% a year. There is a new class of companies that were vertical SaaS companies from the 2000s, the 2010s. And because of AI, they've been able to create fundamentally new products that weren't possible before. And because these products are magical and groundbreaking, a lot of their existing customer base adopts it automatically. What this means is they're able to leverage their existing customer base that perhaps only paid them X amount to now get them to adopt a new magical AI tool where they're willing to pay perhaps 10x the amount because the experience and the outcome is just 10 times more. There are two examples that come to mind. One was Intercom. They actually struggled. Their growth rate was going down over a couple of consecutive years. The CEO came back and introduced Fin. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, they went from 0 to 100 million in about 24 months. And the same is true for another company called, I think, Podium. They also introduced an AI product that was built from the ground up that wasn't possible before, and they had a very similar outcome, $0 to $100 million in 24 months. Okay, why does this matter? When you're buying a company or investing in a company, it's worth considering two things. One is, does this company give you a wedge, an existing customer base to work on top of, to introduce a new product that wasn't possible before AI? And if you can do that, and if you can make the product magical and great, you might be able to have a similar outcome here. The second thing to consider is perhaps you don't have the existing customer base, but you're able to acquire a team that can make that product happen. Might also be something worth considering if you don't have the talent in-house. The fourth major shift that I'm seeing is that individuals are getting infinite leverage. The right person with the right setup can accomplish more than an entire team previously. And back to my setup that I explained previously, one thing that you're able to do is run both an SEO audit plus make the changes. Same with Google Ads and an email campaign. You can do all of these three things in one sit down with my AI setup. Before, I'd have to work with an SEO specialist or an agency, the same with Google Ads and the same with email campaigns. But today, I can make progress on all three of these in one single session because I have access to all of these tools, access to all of our data from one place. I'm no longer bottlenecked by my ability to execute or waiting on other people. The AI actually goes out and does everything that I want it to do. So my prediction here is that we're going to see a new set of super operators. We've kind of seen this pre-AI with the leverage that the internet gives us. One person can run a company and scale it to millions of dollars in revenue just through Facebook ads. Or somebody can have massive influence just through having a strong YouTube presence. Today, if you think about the leverage both from attention from companies like YouTube and Facebook, as well as the leverage in terms of output from AI and codifying the skills that you have, individuals are just going to get more and more leverage. And we'll have these super operators that are able to do 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times more than an individual without it. So if you're running a fund or a firm or a company, you want to think about how you can attract and retain these types of people, or think about how you can turn your existing team into people that are super operators, individuals that have infinite leverage such that they can accomplish so much more. In 2025, $61 billion from private equity related firms flowed into data center build-outs. But what people miss is where this money actually went. Blackstone bought a 774 megawatt gas plant in Virginia. They didn't buy a data center, but they bought a power plant to actually power the data center. Google spent around $5 billion to acquire this company called Intersect Power, a clean energy developer. Again, wasn't for the technology, but access to energy. The reason this is happening is that the bottleneck has shifted. 2 years ago, the bottleneck was chips. NVIDIA couldn't make chips fast enough, but that has changed. And now the bottleneck is energy. Data centers now consume 4% of all US electricity, and Goldman Sachs projects that this will increase about twofold by 2030. Admittedly, I don't know as much about the AI infrastructure build-out as I would like. And so in a future video, I'll be doing a deep dive to understand how the capital is flowing, what are the actual bottlenecks, and are there any predictions that I can make about the future based on what I'm seeing today. And once that's done, you'll be able to watch it here.